Hey everybody, back on the floor of Denver Comic Con. I really need to stop saying that for every single interview. I just realized that I've done that 20 times now today. I'm here with Langdon Foss. He's the artist on the Surface and Get Jiro. Honestly, two of my favorite comics. I love your art style. I'm super excited that you're here, and I'm excited to talk to you. How are you today?
I'm doing really well. Thanks, Gabe.
First of all, let me start with the Surface. The Surface is like this really kind of trippy, for lack of a better term, mindfuck of a book. When you were approaching the script to it, how do you do that? It is a crazy book, and you came up with crazy visuals for it.
Well, Alish and I spoke quite a bit going in. The story, to be absolutely clear, evolved quite a bit over the 4 issues. The ultimate finale was supposed to involve something crazy, like a giant robot powered by the brains of communist dictators. And they would use the power of the Surface to use Ford's capitalist vision of the automated factory to... It was bizarre, but, it was like, I'm in. This guy's talking my kind of crazy. Yeah, no, we had a few conversations, and we had very similar ideas about sort of psychedelia and what the nature of reality might consist of, and we just went from there. So he wrote the script after we spoke of it. Yes, we were both on the same page in that way. And then, he looked at my art, and then he would make another pass with the dialogue to snug it up. We went from there. So it evolved from that point.
Admittedly, the end of the book as it stands is not really any less crazy than what you just proposed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that kind of craziness, but with a poignancy and a personal, like an intimacy that I certainly wouldn't have been able to bring, but it was Alish, and it was very personal for him. So it was a privilege to be a part of that. But you're right, it made sense to me. The ending made sense to me, and I hope upon many readings, or maybe a few readings, every reader gets something out of it.
It's one of those, I use an app that is through my local library, quite a bit. And it's one of the books that it recommended. I was like, okay, I'll try it out. And then it blew me away, and I ended up buying it. So, success. You guys did a really, really great job on the book. Another one of my really favorite, caught me off guard. I've been a longtime fan of Anthony Bourdain as a guy that's a cook. And so when I saw that he was making comic books with Get Jiro, I was like, well, I have to have that. That sounds amazing. And then you read it, and it's like this crazy post-apocalyptic food weirdness. Again, how'd you approach that?
He gave an explanation of sort of the social structure of this wild, extreme, absurd culture. And I just wanted to take it to the extreme. There are things I would make it even more extreme if I could do it now. But, just the fact that every aspect of the culture had something to do with food. I wanted to, every detail to have an advertisement for food, wanted to come up with all these crazy different restaurant names. So possibly a good thing I wasn't in charge. I wasn't put on a sequel because I'm out of restaurant names. Oh, come on, there's always more restaurant names. But
there's always another pun around the corner.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wanted to take it to the extreme, and I think I did pretty well. It was really fun to draw, and I think there's so much more to that world we could have explored. So I regret not being able to do that.
So your art style is highly detailed. It's incredibly, I like to call it illustrative, because every line seems very precise. Every detail is very detailed. How did you come about to that particular style of artwork?
I've asked myself that question. I've been a fan of Japanese comics since I discovered them visiting my grandparents in Wichita, Kansas, because I grew up in the mountains in Eagle, and we just didn't have access to anything but American comics. And the art style was I got into Otomo and Shiro, and they were very precise, and in the clarity of everything I was looking at was so refreshing. It was... I literally felt my eyes sort of massaged by a certain cadence of line work, and I think it was the clarity of it that maybe to a young me was I was interested in organizing I was interested in making sense of the world, I suppose. So instead of shadows and dry brush and emotion, I wanted to categorize and compartmentalize. and a clean line approach that described everything just made sense to me. It really, it's how I see the world.
It's fascinating to me, like, when you draw a piece of sushi, you see every grain of rice, like, the pipes and like the like, frankly, like kind of Terry Gilliam level of like ductwork that's in the Surface, like, is super fascinating to me. It reminds me of like French comics or like Jeff Darrow, that kind of thing. Are there any, like, is there like a particular artist that you kind of looked up to when you were young?
Real quick, the danger, of course, of drawing every grain of rice, or trying to draw everything in a scene, is that, not to get too abstract here, but the world is infinitely detailed. And so you have to decide when to stop drawing at some point. Now, Jeff Darrow, I respect him immensely as an artist. He just decides to keep drawing, like, way past the point that I stop, And so, I mean, that's the decision of the artist, is when to stop doing detail. And when it stops serving the piece, then you need to stop drawing. So, with my grains of rice, if I drew Get Jiro nowadays, I probably wouldn't include every single grain of rice, but at the time it certainly made sense. Jeff Darrow, his work doesn't make me terribly comfortable, but I think that's great. I admire him immensely. My old friend Seth Fisher, if you remember his work, taught me how to draw, and I taught him how to draw. We were best friends. Loved him, and I loved his work very much. Shiro Otomo from Japan, Mobius, Obsies, his line work. The clarity, his imagery, those are probably the big hitters.
That's awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. Like I said, I'm super excited.